Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first book club. We're so glad you are here. My name is Behnaz Rohani, and I am the Professional Development Coordinator, and I'm doing this session with Christine Mirbaha. Please introduce yourself.
Well, no, you did a really good job of pronouncing my name for me. Thank you. Because I can't do it. I'm Christine Mirbaha, like she said, Mirbaha. She says it right. And I am currently the Division Department Leadership AMATYC leader. But this book club thing started, the discussion started around it, well, I guess about 2 or 3 years ago. Started with Judy Williams and Darlene Winningham. When we were talking one day, we said we thought it would be a cool idea. And so now we're getting it started. And it's really great to be working with Behnaz on this. Now notice my pronunciation is not as good. The first book that we chose was a small teaching by James M. Lang, which was something that Behnaz had heard about in a lot of different venues. And it turns out that at the college that I teach at, CCBC, we were using it for our first year teachers. So it's it turned into a really kind of neat thing. We have several people here. I'd really like to know who's all here. And I think everybody else would. So if you could just introduce yourself and say like who your affiliate is, maybe, it would be really great. And if you're doing any kind of a leadership thing in AMATYC, it would be nice to know as well. We'll start with Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Gaines. I'm formerly of St. Louis Community College. I just retired last June. And in AMATYC, I'm the Student Research League Coordinator. I'm the My AMATYC website coordinator. And I'm the project director on our current grant we have, Teaching for Prowess, which is tied to our impact document. So that keeps me busy.
That does, I guess. Okay, Jamie.
Okay, I'm Jamie Blair. I'm the instructor coordinator of a math center at Orange Coast College, and I have made dozens of presentations at AMATYC. I was one of the leaders on a committee for wasn't traveling tutors, it was training tutors. And I was on the developmental committee, and I was a representative from the California at a delegate, and I'm now busy with this whole redesign stuff, and so I've done less with AMATYC and focusing on getting our campus up to speed with this terrible redesign our state did, trying to keep students from failing and dropping out. So that's kind of consumed all my time. I'm 43 years teaching, so I just don't want to stop. I mean, I'm old, but I know I like it. I don't know what else to say.
That's cool. Thank you. Julie?
I'm Julie Hanson. I teach statistics and math at Clinton Community College, which is in Plattsburgh, New York, in upstate New York. And in AMATYC, I chair the statistics committee.
Mitra?
Hi, my name is Mitra Hosseini. I'm an instructor in Salt Lake Community College. I'm not too busy.
No, that's great. That's great. Welcome. Let's see, Taylor.
Hey, I'm Taylor Kilman, and I am an assistant professor of mathematics at Indian River State College down in Florida.
Okay. I'm going to mess it up. Irina.
Irina, actually.
Irina. I had it right the first time. Okay.
You did. Okay, hello. My name is Irina Pavluk. I am a full-time faculty member at Middlesex County College in New Jersey. My training is in pure mathematics, but when I started teaching at a community college, I knew I needed to learn more about math ed, you know? And I joined AMATYC only recently. And my role in the college is that I am one of the coordinators for the Student League competition from the AMATYC. So far, this is it. That's all what I'm doing. But I'm excited about this book club, actually, because I need more training in math education. Thank you.
Larisha?
Hi, I'm Larisha. I teach at Santa Fe College down in Gainesville, Florida. Don't let the name fool you. We are not in the regular Santa Fe. I have been attending AMATYC conferences for 3 or 4 years now, and I presented at one this past year for the first time, which was exciting. But other than that, I don't have a role in AMATYC. I just really like all the stuff y'all do, and I love learning about teaching.
Cool. Welcome. Sylvia?
Hi, my name is Sylvia San Pedro. I teach for Lone Star College System, and I've been doing that for about 12 years, but I've been in education since, I don't know, 1988 or something like that. Hope to retire soon, and I've done some presentations for AMATYC. In particular, we did a workshop on the interactive notebook.
Cool. And where did you go? Kara?
Hi, I'm Kara Raymond. I teach at Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville, Tennessee. The only thing I've done with AMATYC is I was Project Access Cohort 15. So we finished up just before COVID. So I got my full 2 years in there. And I teach a lot of college algebra. And the class below that, I've only been teaching college for 5 years, but I taught high school for a good decade before that.
Cool. Welcome. Wow, that's a great group that we have here. And it sounds like everybody is really interested in working on teaching, basically. Well, most of us, some of us are retired. Okay, so, but it's always good to get those, just get some more ideas, because we, even though we may or we may not be teaching in the classroom, we do teach all the time. We just teach in different ways. So it's kind of a neat thing. I wanted to take a couple seconds to ask you to, if you have something to write on or to type on or something, just write down a couple of things that you got from the book as you read it. If you are here and you haven't read it, don't worry, I have something for you to do too. I'm going to ask you, what do you think small teaching is about? Okay, and what kinds of things do you think would be involved in small teaching that you probably could use on your own? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that, and then I'm going to ask for some input, please. I wish I had music to play with this. I'm going to jot that down for next one, music. Oh, cool. Thanks, Karen. Okay, I'll give you another minute. It's the longest minute in history, right? Okay, I'm going to ask, does someone want to share what they wrote?
I can share.
Okay, go for it.
I did not read the book, so I don't know how much my input would be important, but I think that the book is about probably new or innovative strategies to teach mathematics, because math education evolves constantly, and of course students as a population evolve constantly also. So I think maybe it is about, as I said, new strategies or new approaches to teaching mathematics.
It's got some of that in there. It does. I think people will agree. Who else?
I can talk. I also have not read the book because my colleague forwarded me the invite to this today. So
Okay.
I would guess that small teaching, I was thinking that maybe it would have something to do with how we can interact on maybe a smaller scale. Like we all do this amazing stuff in our courses every day, but maybe it's like, how can you interact with like each student, or how can you reach each student individually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be part of it. Someone else?
I'll speak. Jamie Blair, right here. Okay. I, like the other person, I didn't get a chance to read the book, but I joined the club because I'm wondering if it has something to do with what I'm experiencing and how I redesigned my whole class to, you know, you learn by seeing, hearing, reading, and writing. So I only give them a little piece at a time, and then I have them talk about it, and then I have them try something. So I don't do this big, long lecture, and even in their homework, it's little pieces at a time. And then I have individual breakout groups where I do what the other person said, where I have some one-on-one time with each one of them, not just to talk about the math, but how they feel about it. I teach basic classes and students with high anxiety. So new techniques are something I'm always interested in to reach them. That's what I thought it might be about.
It is to a degree, yes. Anybody else?
I'm going to join the group that didn't read either, but I thought it might be small changes that the instructor can do that would make big impacts for the student.
And that is exactly what it is, but it incorporates everything that everybody's been talking about and been wondering about. Yes, definitely. Well, yes, Kara.
So I did read a bit of the book. I'm still in the first try section, I guess, of it, because it's my spring break, though. I came to this meeting during my spring break, so I think that should count for stuff. But I really liked the premise of it, how exactly what the last person said, that the small changes can add up to make big impacts in student learning and engagement and stuff. But I was most interested to see that it was not about math at all. So the very first book you guys picked about teaching was not math at all. And so I wondered how people would incorporate some of these things. I actually went and looked him up because I really enjoyed his writing style, and our library has several other books by him, but I wondered how to incorporate it more mathy.
Yeah, which is one reason why we wanted to do the book and then talk about it in terms of math, because yes, he does do a little bit of math in there, just not a lot. He's not a math teacher per se. So his orientation isn't that way. But I found that a lot of what he said can be applied to the mathematics classroom. And actually, I think we all do a lot of what he said in the book already.
Can I say something?
Sure, say whatever you want.
The one I have read the book, but I'm not quite finished. This is also my spring break. So, and I love this book because even though he's not a math person, but many of the analogies that he uses, we can use in our classroom. For instance, here he quotes Miller, and I'm on page 28. It talks about that how Miller explained about long-term memory, that it says in long-term memory, the limiting factor is not storage capacity, but rather the ability to find what you need when you need it. You see, talking about such things to our students, it's amazing. It's like you have a huge closet, but just dump everything there. As you walk in there, you can't find what you want. So you need to organize it. So really the key is to teach them how to organize all these stuff that you put in the closet. You see, these are the kind of things that I think it will help our students. And this is what he's talking about, the small teaching. And that's what I love about it, because it gives me insight into, and I underline it and say, oh, gee, this is a great one. When I'm with my students, I can talk about this, that difference between short-term and long-term. And they would be amazed as though you're talking about rocket science when you talk about these kind of things, because they have never encountered these kind of discussions anywhere else. And it is so beneficial to them when we bring up such topics with them. So this was one of those things that I underlined in his book. And it is full of this kind of stuff. It's like about pre-testing, about the importance of those reviews, about recall. And it's very, very small things that we can just incorporate and into our courses and get wonderful results.
Now I'm going to buy the book for sure because of what she just said. This is Jamie, because I went back to college for educational psychology, half of a master's, but then I got everything I needed, so I didn't finish it. But I realized that you learn by seeing, hearing, reading, and writing. So I put the wheel up on the thing and I tell them that their notes is the writing, me talking is the hearing, and then they need to reread and rewrite their notes. And, they kind of listen. But then when I tell them to make, just like what you said, I tell them that your brain just throws everything all over the place. And you have to organize it in folders so you can remember it, because that's what I learned there. And then I say, so if you put things on note cards and place them around the house categorically, I can guarantee you on the test, you won't need that note card, you'll see it.
That's right.
And during the test, I tell them you can put the note cards on the desk, but I bet you won't need them if you did them, especially if you like color and stuff like that. And then I'll see them look up and smile at me because they saw the card in their head. I said, put it on the refrigerator. If you eat a lot, put it on the mirror. If you do your hair a lot, you kind of make it fun. And it's amazing to see in the class when all of a sudden it lights up for them. So I'm definitely going to now get this book, because nobody teaches them how to learn is what I said. And so you may be just as smart as the person next to you or have just as much of ability, but they know how to learn and you don't know how to learn. So I think that's, now I'm going to buy the book.
Yes, it's got such beautiful, little strategies that, for instance, it says space out due dates, frequent quizzing, reading checks, and each one of these, we read them here, there, everywhere, but these are all here. And, this is not the kind of book you can just read once. So once I finish, I have to reread it and reread it to kind of, get a full grasp of it. I wasn't contemplating to buy it either. I said, well, I said, no, that's not the way to do it. I need to buy the book. So, yeah.
It wasn't exactly cheap. I'll give you that. But all the ideas in it, well, not all of them, most of the ideas in them, we can use in a math classroom. And then, like you said, there's a lot of things we just don't teach because, well, let's face it, we have a semester to get across a whole bunch of material. And it's, when do we have the time for this other stuff? When do you have the time to do the rest of it? And the ideas that he has in here for actually helping. Like you said something about the cards, Jamie. He doesn't talk about those, but he does give ideas of things that we just normally don't think of as being, oh, that would work. For example, asking them to jot down just, something that they got from it, okay? Or something that they didn't understand. They call them the minute thesis or whatever, where you say, well, I understood this, we did this today and I understood this, but I didn't understand that, I'm kind of fuzzy. They have different ways of calling that. And so a lot of the things that he mentions in here are things that what we would call best practices in our schools already. I don't know if you all went through that, but at CCBC, a community college in Baltimore County, we went through a phase of, okay, you're going to list out a bunch of best practices, and now you're going to take 3 of them and you're going to do them in your class this semester, and then so on and so forth, right? We all had that. And so he does some of those in here too. But some of the ideas some of the things that he's talking about, like just having the students talk out loud, as they're processing things, to share with their peers, to sit down and solve something and then turn to their peers and talk to about it for a minute and then come back and then redo. We do that in some ways sometimes when we take a moment, but it's really kind of difficult. And even now with the different ways that we're teaching, I think that those are kind of it's kind of important to start looking at things in different ways. And that's what I found in his book. I found lots of ideas for doing things a bit differently than what I've been doing, but the same kind of ideas that I think will be more effective, He breaks down the book into 4 pieces. He breaks it down into knowledge, understanding, 3 pieces, inspiration, okay? And each one of those, he talks about different things. Now, the one I found that was really kind of interesting was something called interleaving, okay? And interleaving is literally taking things and doing this, so that you're taking a concept that you've already taught before, and then you're putting it back in as part of doing the other. With math, remember, we're a spiral, and we always say, well, one does rely on the other. So in a way, we do talk about interleaving, but just to have him say, well, why don't you show how this relates to this that we did? Or predicting. There's another one called predicting, where he says, why don't you predict what I'm going to do next? Why don't you predict what's going to happen? And those kinds of things, we have a tendency to lose when we're teaching. At least I do. I don't know about you all, but I have a tendency not to see them at all. So when I was listening and reading what he had to say, what's really neat about this book, and I'm going to plug the book, what's really neat about this book is he doesn't just sit there and go, well, this is what I did, and this is what I think you should do. Instead, he breaks it down. He has different pieces in here. He's actually literally talking about activities in 3 different modalities, but not talking modalities like as in teaching modalities, not like as in person or online or so on and so forth. He talks about it in terms of brief or little tiny pieces, 5 to 10 minutes at the most, activities that you can do, or just pieces that you can incorporate into your classes. He talks about things that only are going to work one time, only a one-time intervention, but it becomes an impactful, a powerful intervention. By intervention, I don't mean something negative. What I mean is just another way of shifting the learning. And then also just in the design itself, or how we talk with our students, how we communicate with our students. Whether we're, things like sending them a positive little, gee, I really liked your idea today in class. Little tiny email or something, or posting something in the discussion board that just makes it more meaningful for them to know that, you're part of them and they're part of you. And it's really kind of neat. One of the things he suggests is coming to class 5-10 minutes early, okay? And just talking with the students on the different levels. Well, we do that, But we don't do that enough that we get to know everybody in the class, but sometimes that makes a difference between whether they're going to stay or go, or whether they're going to learn or not. So I think personalizing is one of those things. But anyhow, the reason I really like this book is because he introduces the particular piece that he's talking about. And then he talks about what happens in theory. Okay, in theory, this is what should happen. Okay, but then he gives you models. He gives you 5 different things that actually, 5 different scenarios, if you like, or whatever, but 5 different models, 5 different ways to take that particular piece and incorporate it in, or how it's been incorporated in. And then he talks about the principles that, you know, even if you don't do anything like the models or come up with anything similar to the models, there are some things that you want to touch on. And then the biggest piece I found was very interesting was something called quick small teaching. He gives you bullets about, hey, try this, try this, try this, try this, just for very quick, very instantaneous things. And just try it and see if you like it, that kind of thing. It's not really a prescription per se. It's just giving you ideas of how everything else that he said might be something that you could do, okay? And then, of course, he gives a conclusion for each piece too. But I found that the most valuable pieces were those quick, small teachings, because then I got ideas that inspired me as to how to maybe try this in my class. And so in reading the book, at first I was like, okay, I'm reading a book, you know? But now it's really cool because I'm trying different things in my class based on it. And I'm finding it's really kind of cool. So for those of you who haven't read it, it's worth it. For those of you who have read it, Banaz is right. You read it over and over again because every time there's a whole bunch of new things in it, okay? He even goes into the Carol Dweck and the mindset changing things too, which I know everybody's heard for a long time now. And some people have actually said, please don't talk about mindsets ever to me. But there's other things that are just things that I just never even thought about, you know, how to inspire my students, how to get them to inspire each other, okay? Practicing. We think of practicing as doing problems every night, but practicing, just talking about things. Those are all different kinds of neat things. It's not just the let's test and let's do this other thing. There's lots of different ways to find out. So that's what I found out of it. Did anybody else have anything that they found?
Well, it's not, what I liked about it is it's not so much coming in, you know, and he even talks about this when when people come to in-service or something in the middle of the semester and tell you all these wonderful things and you're like, yeah, but what can I do on Monday? You know, and so these are super little things, but he also puts it back to all of the brain thinking and why it works and what about the brain is making it happen. So you can see how to put it in your style. So if you are a pure 100% lecture, there's stuff in here you can do. If you're a 100% active learning, you can do this. If you have, a huge 200 person class, you can do this. If you have 12 people, you can do it. There's something in there that you can pull at no matter where you personally as an instructor are, there's something you can pull to help just improve you.
Yeah. And one of the things I really liked about it is it's not just stuck for in the classroom. And so I'm going to ask what maybe some ideas, little tiny small things that could be used in the classroom, that could be used online, that could be used in all different kinds of scenarios where you're teaching, because I know we have diverse teaching. We have the remote teaching or whatever you want to call it, where we're synchronously teaching during the class time, but like this, interacting online. There's the in-person, which several colleges are not doing yet, and several colleges are. And then there's the totally online. And how do you get people involved in little tiny things? And because the online people, especially, I think there are some issues there simply because people are taking online classes as online classes, strictly online, because they work and they have family life and they have everything else. So trying to get them to do something, just taking a little tiny thing like, send me a one-liner about what you found was interesting in this particular section, or how are you going to use this? How are you going to use this in class? Or how are you going to use this to them? How are you going to use this in your life?
Well, to personalize it, this is Jamie again. To personalize it, I tried something for a student that didn't want to put her picture up, and we're not allowed to ask them to show their face unless they're taking a test, and at our school for privacy issues. And she didn't show up for the test, and she didn't ever talk at all. But she had the cutest dog on her picture, just a darling dog. And so one day I just said to her as we class, I said, that dog is so cute. We would love to see him. And everybody said, yes. So she immediately turned her camera on and showed the dog. Next thing I know, she's turning the camera on, coming to class. Just made her feel, because there's so many people on the screen, I think she just felt lost in the crowd or something. It was just a very shy person. You could tell by her voice. So I'm trying to do personalized things like that, because somehow they think you're real. You're not just this person standing in front of the class. I said, I'm having a bad hair day, because one day my hair was really a mess. And they just look like, gosh, she's a real person. So that's the things that I'm trying to do. So if anybody else has any ideas, because I'm not an online teacher, so doing the remote stuff made it more difficult for me to do the things I normally did. So I could use some advice on that.
I can tell you that for me, my students, funny thing, I have 3 birds and a cat. And on any given day, if it's a synchronous class, sometimes I can't get the birds to go into the cage before I teach. So I'll end up with a bird on my shoulder. And I've been to some AMATYC meetings with the bird on my shoulder too. She likes to hang out. And then the cat who gets jealous, And so what happened was last semester, I had a student who really wasn't, you're right, wasn't paying attention much. And the bird happened to be on my shoulder one day. And she was like, oh, there's a bird on your shoulder. Right, yes, okay, fine. Next class, where's the bird? Go get the bird. We're not having class until you go get the bird. But she started to pay attention, and she went from being at best a C student to being a straight A student, just because I had the bird on my shoulder one day. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I find trying to get my students' attention sometimes is kind of interesting. Sometimes trying to get them to participate is like, it's like dragging someone to the dentist when they know they're going to get their tooth pulled without Novocaine. Okay. So it's kind of weird.
Many of the techniques that he talks here in this book, even though this is not written with online teaching in mind, but many of them, they apply to online teaching too. I'm fully online. For instance, on page 71, he goes on, he talks about, that is in the section that is on interleaving. He says that if you have quizzes that have, for instance, has 10 question multiple choice on a weekly basis, set 2 of those questions from the previously learned material. So you see, so you are constantly testing them on the material, say from chapter 2, chapter 1. So that chapter 1 gone, chapter 2 gone, and now we are in chapter 3 and we are just concentrating on chapter 3. I thought it was very interesting, because most of the time I just do just that particular chapter. And he was saying that whatever you are trying to test them on high stake exams, make sure you do it on low stake tests or quizzes that you have in your class. And this is exactly what I have been, when I saw that, I say, gee, this is what I have been doing. I keep reminding my students, I let them know that I am not going to catch you to trick you at the final exam or midterm exam, which is proctored. I will catch you right here when you are with me. You're going to see everything while we are doing these quizzes, the homework. So you will see it all. You will see it all. So this was what he was trying to relay the message that let them see it before you test them, in those high stake exams. And the other point, which I thought it was very interesting on page 79, he said, remember though that asking students to struggle a little bit with material that they have not fully mastered will help draw on the learning power of prediction. Will help them draw on the power of prediction. So it is okay for them to struggle. Let them think. And this is something that our students are so scared of. The minute they don't get it, they give up. And I constantly keep telling them in the live sessions I have, it's okay not to know. It's perfectly okay. If you knew it all, you would be wasting your time with me. I love to have you in my class, but if you knew it all, then you would belong to another class, not this class, upper level class. So you are here because you don't know it. So don't be scared of struggling.
I addressed that a little bit in my syllabus. I found a blog one time about the 15-minute rule, and I had no idea what this was, but the short of it is that when a student gets stuck in my syllabus and when I meet with them in class, I say, as soon as you get stuck, set a timer for 15 minutes. And I want you to try anything you can think of, and I want you to write it all down. But you have to promise me that as soon as those 15 minutes of struggle are up, then I want you to come talk to me. I don't want you to struggle forever. I just want you to be a little bit of uncomfortable with the struggle, right? I want you to just do a little bit. But I think they like when I say, like, you have to promise me that you're going to come talk to me after 15 minutes, because that gives them like an out, and they come to me and they say, okay, I tried this. They show me all this work. And then we have a point where we can start, be like, oh, I see where you misunderstood.
That's right.
Yeah. You talk about online teaching. This author has another book. It's called A Small Teaching Online. You may like it. I can put the link here if you want.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the books I wanted to ask you all about, if you were interested in reading that and meeting about that. I don't know if it's going to get accepted or not, but I have a request in to maybe have a session, a book club session at AMATYC in Phoenix to go over that book. So it would be really kind of cool if we could do that. I think because he addresses apparently, and I haven't read it yet, I'll be honest, but from what I've read about it, he addresses things strictly online, but I have a sneaking suspicion that online could be remote. It could be even used in the classroom to an extent.
Yeah.
So that would be cool.
That would be great. Yeah.
I do want to ask, for the people who have read it or read some of it at least, do you have anything that you think you want to try right now? Right now, meaning not today, but in the near future, in your classroom, or for the people who haven't read it, any kind of the ideas that you think you might want to try that you think are very small little things that might work?
I'll share this. When I was doing face-to-face and I have my students take a test and then I grade them and I give it back to them so they can see what they did, but I collect the test, like the graded test, I keep those. But on the second test, normally I put a little sticky note on there telling them, oh, I see improvement. I see that you're doing better. I see the work is more organized, whatever little thing. And everybody gets a sticky note, everybody. And it's always a positive thing, whether, even if they failed or whatever, I say, you know what, your handwriting or the ability to see the flow of your work is improving. Like, it doesn't matter. I just say something very positive. And I tell them when I return the test to them to take that sticky note off and put it wherever they want to, in their notebook, wherever they're going to see it again, so that they can remind themselves that they are improving. What's amazing is I have had some students, you know, take me 2-3 semesters later for whatever reason, and they're like, oh, you know, that I still have that sticky note on my notebook, you know, so they still have it. And it's just amazing how the small little thing like that just literally carry through their math classes.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something that I've got, I do completely asynchronous courses, which can sometimes feel very, very separate, is that when you are writing comments, whether it's in feedback online or, I mean, obviously in email you would, but use their name. Just, you know, Susie, that was so awesome, or I really enjoyed reading this, Susie, just by personalizing it so that they don't feel that every communication from you is a mass information, that's specific to them, somehow makes a huge difference.
I found just saying thank you. Okay, or you know, someone can someone can write and complain up one side and down the other. Okay, and I'll usually just say thank you very much for your input. I really appreciate it, and then I try to address their issue. Or if it's a positive thing or whatever. But even if I send someone like I have a tendency to, they send me a problem and I have a tendency to write out the solution in details with the math and in words, okay, for anything that they didn't understand. And then I send it back, and they always send it back and send back something and say, thanks. Well, usually, not always, but usually they send something back and says, okay, yeah, that helped, or something like that. I always say something back to them like, you're welcome. Please let me know if you need anything else or anything. And that kind of a dialogue I found keeps them in too. You're right. And it's always so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. Or that's great news, blah, 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 you know? Yeah.
But even inside the LMS, where it's going directly to that student anyway, so you know it's just for them, using the name.
Yeah.
Addition with the thank you and the exclamation points and the,
yeah.
Building off of that, something I accidentally discovered, I was grading in my Canvas LMS, and I was just, honestly, my fingers were just tired of typing feedback over and over again. So for a couple students, I did like just audio, not even a video, just an audio of me saying the feedback out loud. And I just got back their mid-semester surveys where I asked about feedback for the course. And several of them said that helped them feel more connected to me, especially since I'm all online now. It's not just remote or online synchronous, it's asynchronous. So like we don't talk in person in our classroom. So they said that the audio feedback was really, really helpful in personalizing the course.
Huh.
Absolutely.
I know using an Echo Pen works. So do y'all know LiveScribe Echo Pens? Using those because when you're writing, you're also speaking, okay? And then they can play you back. They can touch something in paper because it's a PDF, but they can play it back and so on and so forth. They do have to download a player. It's a free player or whatever. But then they get to hear your voice. They get to see what you're doing. They get to watch what you're doing as you're doing it. They're not watching your face do this. They're actually just watching you write it out. So it's almost like being in the classroom. Those things are wonderful. So, and that's for my strictly online. Go ahead, Jamie.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You know, the part where you said to do that, a couple of reviews within the next amount of material. I think sometimes we get so caught up and we have to give them the material, we forget we have to teach them how to learn and teach them. But in the states where they're cutting out a lot of the basic classes and just putting them into transfer classes, how do you feel, those of you, because I noticed a lot of you said you teach the upper classes, and how do you feel about the students coming in, getting whatever support you give them, whether it's co-requisite or whatever you do, whether you integrate the review? Do you feel that you have a weaker group of students now in those classes? I don't mind that they're weaker. I just worry that they're going to go into that thinking, well, we were told we should be able to handle it, but we can't, and then just lose their interest in going to school. Because that's a question that our college as a whole is upset about. Our state did the most strictest thing where we can't force them to have any prerequisites. They can just do whatever they want, just go right into transfer. So are you seeing a difference? I mean, it's been a year or two for most schools. In that, do you see any of that happening where the students are dropping like flies and being discouraged or weaker?
Tennessee went to co-rec 5-6 years ago. So it was before my time, and this is my 5th year. So we actually noticed an increase in people being able to pass the college level course that first course. I don't teach anything upper though, so I can't tell you if it makes them bad up above, but we had really good success with the co-rec.
We're having really good success with our liberal arts pathways, with statistics, and with liberal arts math, because they're incorporating a lot of pre-algebra type stuff as they go along and only teaching them what they need to know. But the other track where they're going to college algebra and trig is really bad. So we were just wondering if other colleges are seeing that, and if they're not, what are they doing? Because even if I try all these techniques, I don't teach them, but I support in the Learning Center, the tutoring for the teachers that do, and they're really asking me for ideas, and I'm like, let me ask everybody else.
Well, actually, what I found is, and I do agree that there's been a shift in the entry knowledge of people. However, I am going to say this, that I found that a lot of the little things that he talks about in his book actually help to bring the student back into the learning process, back into the whatever they need in order to do the studying, in order to learn the things that they are sometimes lacking in. Yes, I'm teaching statistics, and I can tell you there are times when I wonder how they got in my class, but I found that if I just do little tiny things, okay, even and this is going to sound crazy, this is really going to sound crazy. One day I noticed that, they were all sitting there and they were getting hung up on those long numbers that you have to deal with, And so in the middle of everything, I just sort of looked at him. I said, stop a second. Okay, if you're really feeling stressed right now, did you know that you can do this? And I did 5 jumping jacks. Okay. After that, strange but true. Now remember, I'm a wacko person. Strange but true, they went back to their work and they were able to deal with the larger numbers. Not only that, but some of them even handled the idea of the algebra behind it. That who had been sitting there going, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is no. So I think it's just little tiny things that help in the classroom and little tiny things that help at home. Just weird things. Not necessarily the we're going to sit here, we're going to learn this, and here's the PEDMAS things, that kind of MDAS things. Those things are nice, Schoolhouse Rock is fine, but just little tiny things that jog something that causes them to just jog differently.
I think the book would be really good because it has all the brain behind it. This isn't just a feel-good thing. This is what it helps in your brain to help you process things.
Right. It's a lot of brain-based learning thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All this is done through research. And, I remember, when was it? A few weeks back, I was in one of my live sessions. I was just talking towards the end of the session for my calculus students. I was just giving them my experience when I was graduate school, how I used to study. And when I finished talking, then one of them opened up his mic and he said, "Oh my goodness, no one ever shared with me such insight. This is neat. I'm going to implement this.
Yeah.
I'm going to study just like the way you explained it." So by going through these little steps that are mentioned here, because these are all research-based, we can, as Christine said, we can implement these small steps into our classes. And because these students, where they're coming from in high school, they really do not know how to study, how to learn. So now it is our job to teach them math, also to teach them how to study, how to learn, how to utilize their time, how to do time management, how to manage everything in their lives. So we have to inject bits and pieces here and there. And I find that all of that is in here, you know, for us to take advantage of.
Could this group, like, I don't know how we could follow up on this, but it sounds like instead of us as teachers having a small teaching book, we almost need to make a module for our students called small studying, like small changes you can make to study better.
Yes.
And wouldn't it be great if we could all just like get a discussion board on my AMATYC or something and just start compiling this, and then maybe AMATYC can make like a little module that people can import into their courses. Like, I had no idea about the jumping jack thing. Like, I'm just gonna go tell my students to do jumping jacks.
Yeah, I love
You just made Karen's day. You don't know. You just made Karen's day. I'm telling you, you made her your entire year. Yeah, Karen, is there a way for us to have a book club site put up on my AMATYC that maybe people could just sort of?
So it's funny. I just emailed our Higher Logic company about trying to figure out how to do book reviews so that we would have a searchable way people, because I'm sitting here looking at all the books I have about thinking and learning and brain studies that I would love to share with people. And so I've got that in there. And now with what Larissa just said, yeah, I can create a page on my AMATYC that's about books, and then we can set it up however we want. We certainly could have a discussion board on there.
I think what Larissa is saying, that maybe we can create like a blog or something that people can input all their experiences, what we can tell our students how to study, how to learn. Maybe
Right.
that's what you mean, Larissa, right?
Yeah, I mean, something that we could just all collaborate. Yeah, like that. That'd be great.
We could probably even come up with some sort of a thing that we could compile and make into a zine or a publication of some sort.
Yeah.
Karen, I will volunteer to manage the site, and I'm saying that on the recording.
So you're thinking more you want a community?
Thinking so.
Okay.
Complete with its own little library and everything.
Yeah.
We'd like to have parts of it public, so that people who are not part of the group can actually look in, and maybe that would get them stimulated enough that they'd want to join.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you and I will have to, you and Benaz and I will have to talk about this. But Larissa, that's an awesome idea.
It would be nice if it was. Thank you. It'd be nice if it was public too, as you were mentioning. That way, if I need to, I can be like, hey, student, you're struggling. Why go this link on this website or something?
Your
then
voice,
it's like, hey,
your voice
you might
is,
find
your
something
voice
else.
is cutting off, Larissa. Your voice is cutting off.
Sorry, I am outside, but it would be nice to refer students to it too if it was public.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So you're saying make some of the aspects public and some of the aspects private.
Yeah, I would say that we start off with it private. So we got as the experts in teaching and learning, we can compile it in a professional manner. But then once we feel good about a resource or good about a tip or good about a module, however we organize it, then make it public and we can share it with students, other educators, whatever it is.
Yeah, so what we could do is have a private community, and we could still make it where, you know, anybody can join it. and then we could create a page then that would have the finished products, and that would be public, because once we get into a community, it's very difficult to not, you have to be a member of the community to read certain things, and so but it would provide that working platform, certainly.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
that would be great. Maybe after we worked on it, we get it to a point that we are all very happy about it, then maybe it's something that we can export it to PDF maybe, and faculty, they can share it in their classroom. How about that? Is that doable, Karen?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about our innovative teaching and learning committee that we actually have. This seems like this kind of falls under their purview too. That
Yeah, it does.
we might want to somehow work with them.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
That would be awesome. We are at 3:59, so let's discuss about the frequency and the next book. How often are we interested to meet, and do we want to continue reading this book, those of us who haven't read, those of us who have not finished, or do we want to pick another book? What are your thoughts?
Can we work on this book a little bit more, because I kind of like it. We need to more discuss this book together, if it's possible, actually.
So you like this book?
Yeah, I like it.
Maybe we should come back with feedback after we've tried it, since we've already done this, just like you're going to try the site with just us and get it all nice and organized, because then some people could come back with feedback. I'd especially like to hear it for the higher level classes like college algebra and that, because that's where in California, a lot of colleges are struggling in that area. The liberal arts seems to be working just fine. And so for those of you who teach college algebra, if you could come back with some stuff, then I could bring that back to my school. And but just share what we've already just talked about and other things we try in that community thing. And then move on from there, I guess.
But are we all going to read this book? Those of us who haven't finished, those who have not read it? Because if the call goes out again to the community, people are saying, are you crazy? You just had it a month ago. Again, you want to have the same book.
So we call it a follow-up.
Yeah, follow up or part two. Yeah.
Yeah, part two. And
best practices, even best practices from faculty across the country, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'd have the one thing I want to be careful about best practices, because I've noticed in most of my colleagues, you mentioned best practices, they turn around and walk away.
Right, because is not good enough. Yeah, another name. No,
because it's burnout. It's burnout.
Yeah, it's burnout. Yeah.
We have to call it. We have to call it something else. We have to come up with some name that would attract people's attention.
Right. Yes.
So that is secondary. So.
Okay. Well, I think we should meet again after everybody's finished reading it and coming up with some ideas. Now, I know that some people are extremely busy right now, and we have a lot of things coming up in the month of April. So can I suggest May, the beginning of May, as a good time to consider this? And is this time of day good for people?
Yes.
Okay. Then how about if we do that? How about if we send it out? And then we'll try and maybe start it a little earlier. Then that way, because I notice people have to leave real fast. So maybe we could start it a little bit earlier and have a really good time discussing. And then from there, work on what we want to put up on the site in terms of all this other stuff at the same time. We could get that started so that we could talk about it once again in the beginning of May. Would that work for everybody?
That would be good. How will we find the invite to this next one?
Well, you guys came today, so I will look up your emails and get to you to sort of keep our group together. And then there will be, just like we had before, a call out to the AMATYC community and call to register and so on and so forth, and then have the meeting.
Yeah, once it actually is set up through AMATYC, it does come through under events on my AMATYC. If it's in, in the future, you're going to have to click on the more button to list everything that's scheduled. But once it's formally scheduled, it'll come through to my AMATYC also. So both sites, amatyc.org and my.amatyc.org. So.
Okay, cool.
Excellent.
All right. Well,
thank
I want to thank everybody for coming today and for participating. I really do appreciate, because it's for me, it's very exciting, and I'm sure for a lot of people, it's exciting to have a book club starting. And we will be able to do this, but we will also be able to expand to other books and also look at some that are math oriented, but also some that are not math oriented that could help us as teachers and administrators and so on and so forth. And people.
Absolutely. So the plan is for us to meet sometime in May. And
I would say the first part of May, yeah.
And
because
maybe,
some people are going to be teaching starting in the middle of May.
Right. And then we are going to continue with this book. So stay tuned for another invitation for follow-up to this session. And then after that session, then we will pick another book. So think about new books, and you can either email Christine or myself for any suggestions that you have, because the key is I'm getting someone who wants to enter the room now. So,
let them in.
Yeah,
Christine,
yes.
I've got to go to another meeting, but we will talk about setting up the microsite. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate it.
You all take care. Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Guys,
you
Happy
very
New
much.
Bye.